Hello, guys. Do you remember that classmate who loved to grandstand and then interrupted and challenged the professor despite not having read the required material for the lecture? Or do you know people who, after being exposed to a topic for the first time, claim that they now know more about it than most others? Annoying, right? My dad likes to say, "Tell me what you brag about, and I'll tell you what you're lacking." Why do we get overconfident when we just learned a little bit about something, not understanding the exact limits of our knowledge and abilities? Today, in Deciding How to Decide, we will talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect. And what exactly is it? The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias whereby people with limited knowledge or competence in a given domain will greatly overestimate their knowledge or competence in that domain. How does your real competence relate to your perception of competence or confidence? Check the following graph. When you start learning about a topic, you can't correctly measure its scope and deepness. You ignore what you don't know. But you don't feel that way. Quite the opposite. You think you have some control over it. A bit of knowledge made you overconfident. Call this unconscious incompetence. After you walk some miles learning about the topic, you start becoming aware of what you don't know. Remember your student days when at midnight before your biology exam, you understood after a couple of hours of reading the amount of themes you had to cover to master the exam. Call this conscious incompetence. After some months of learning about the topic, your confidence goes up. Call this conscious competence. After many years of steady learning, you have mastered the topic. You take for granted how much you truly know. Yes, you have confidence in your knowledge, but you avoid overconfidence. Call this unconscious competence. Or the Socrates point: I only know that I know nothing. There are Dunning-Kruger cases everywhere. The consultant who feels competent enough to teach lessons to a marginalized social group that he just met despite lacking shared experiences. The heckler who makes noises in a comedy show, believing he's more entertaining than the professional entertainer on stage that everybody paid to see. The flamboyant, rude, and unskilled ex president who often said, "Nobody knows more than X, Y, and Z better than me." And why does decay happen? The Dunning-Kruger effect results from a lack of metacognition, which is the process of thinking about our thinking. Often we fail to recognize the deficiencies in our knowledge or competence in a specific area. We require a minimum level of the same kind of knowledge or competence to spot them. When we don't have this minimum knowledge, we have a blind spot, which makes us believe that we do have that knowledge and that we're just fine. When this happens, we face the dual burden of incompetence, ignorance, and the ignorance of our ignorance. And who gets affected by the Dunning-Kruger effect? You may think that only people with a low level of education or that are lacking skills are affected by this bias. But no, everybody is susceptible to it. When we jump into new topics outside our domain, we will have gaps in our knowledge. Many people mistakenly believe that their experience and skills in one particular area are transferable to other areas, or that they can easily pick up new skills and understand new information. Wrong. And why it's important. First, you might become a victim of unqualified but overconfident people. They're not easy to spot. Confidence can trump knowledge when trying to convince others. If you don't believe me, look for the stories of failure of the recruitment departments of companies. Overconfident people may be likely to pursue leadership roles or positions of power and to share more information, even though not qualified. Dunning-Kruger affecting your crazy uncle is one thing. Dunning-Kruger presidents are way more dangerous for everybody. Second, your overconfidence can affect you. It can make you resistant to being taught since you believe you know the most. You will then miss opportunities to learn from others who are knowledgeable. And what can we do about it? First, Check those areas in your life where you feel 100% confident. Double check them. Do you really have the required skills? Remember that it isn't a problem if you don't know about something. It's a problem if you think you don't need to keep learning and improving. Compare yourself with others. Get good reference points. Third, seek feedback from skilled people. Try not to get defensive when criticized. Here are two quotes related to Dunning-Kruger. The first one comes from the English naturalist and biologist Charles Darwin. Ignorance more frequently begets confidence than does knowledge. The second one comes from the English poet and satirist Alexander Pope. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Now, some disclaimers. People do not always overestimate their knowledge or competence. Whether they do so depends on the domain in which they evaluate themselves. The Dunning-Kruger effect doesn't have to do with low general intelligence, but with overconfidence at a particular task. Remember, this video is not the last word about the Dunning-Kruger effect. Its goal was to ignite your interest in this topic so you can do your own research. Send us your feedback so we can continue with this conversation. Time to go. See you next time. Thank you.